welcome to today's City Club of Boise program, the Stimpson Award for Civic Engagement and the club's 25th anniversary commemoration. I'm Karen Saunders, City Club Board President. Thank you for joining us today. I want to welcome our radio listeners who will be joining us at a later date via Boise State Public Radio on KBSX 91.5 and its affiliates throughout southern Idaho and northern Nevada. Today's program is available for our audience in large part because of our City Club partners and sponsors. I would like to take time to thank a few of these organizations that help us achieve our mission to ensure compelling conversations, engaged citizens, and a dynamic community. Our premier sponsor is Northwest Nazarene University and the NNU College of Business. Our annual sponsor is St. Luke's Health System. We also receive support from our Forum Series sponsors, AARP Idaho, Bank of Idaho, Climatech Corporation, Echelon Group, Micron, Pacific Source Health Plans, and Small Mine Development. City Club of Boise receives grant funding from the Idaho Humanities Council. Thanks also to our media partners, which include Boise State Public Radio, 670 KBOI, Idaho Statesman, Idaho Public Television, and our university partners, University of Idaho, Boise State University, and NNU. The Dottie and Ed Stimpson Award for Civic Engagement celebrates the spirit of our founder, Dottie Stimpson, and her husband, Ed. The couple believed that no problem was great, so great that it couldn't be solved by people with open minds using civil discourse. Every year, the City Club of Boise honors one or more people or organizations that exemplify that conviction. Past honorees include Dottie and Ed Stimpson, members of the Owyhee Initiative who helped pave the way for land preservation in Southwest Idaho, the Second Idaho Citizens Reappointment Commission in 2012, who overcame partisan wrangling to set Idaho's political boundaries for a decade. Longtime public servant and Idaho Secretary of State Ben Usursa, Congressman Mike Simpson and the Idaho Conservation League Executive Director Rick Johnson for their successful efforts to create the Boulder White Clouds Wilderness, former Boise State University President Bob Kustra, and beloved political expert, professor, and television pundit Jim Weatherby. Today, we are so pleased to recognize the contributions of Elinor Chehey, an avid community volunteer, church leader, and longtime leader, and current treasurer of the League of Women Voters of Idaho. I am joined today by Marcia Franklin, founding board member and past president of City Club of Boise. Marcia has spent the last few weeks reaching out to Elinor's colleagues from the various organizations with whom she's worked. Thank you, Marcia, for putting together this wonderful look at Elinor's career and impact in our community.
Well, thank you, Karen, and thanks for your leadership of this organization during a really trying time. You, Morgan, and the program committee have put on a stellar slate of virtual events during the pandemic, and I encourage people to go to the City Club's website or its YouTube channel to learn more. I'm delighted to moderate this event and know that City Club founder Dottie Stimpson would be so pleased as well that we are honoring Elinor Chehey today. Dottie was a stalwart member and national leader in the League of Women Voters, and she and Elinor met shortly after Dottie moved to town. I first met Elinor in the late 1990s when I started working on the Idaho debates at Idaho Public Television. Her institutional memory of what to others would be arcane information, the debate formats we used from year to year, the changes in FCC regulations regarding qualifications for candidates to participate, and who ran against whom in what year, those were critical to keeping us newbies on track. And her calm and precise timekeeping during debates kept the candidates on track as well. You know, there were times when she was such a one-woman show for the Idaho debates that I joked we should call the organization the League of Women Voter. But of course, that organization has been very involved in our community, and Elinor herself has given to the community in so many other ways as well, including her work for her church, with Interfaith Sanctuary, and with her neighborhood association, another venue in which I've seen her contributions because she and I live near each other. Speaking as a past president who is part of a group that reviews nominations for this award, we were all enthused to see her name on this list. Which reminds me, if you're a City Club member or even just a member of the Valley, Please feel free to submit nominations for the Stimpson Award for next year. It's important that we know who is out there doing good work. Often those people and entities fly under the radar because they don't toot their own horn. Elinor is certainly one of those modest individuals, but today others will make that noise for her. Indeed, we'll begin our program with some testimonials that some of Elinor's many fans recorded for her. Then I'll talk with Elinor about some of the highlights of her 50-year volunteer career before she is presented the award. And then, since this is also the City Club's 25th anniversary, some of the founding board members will reflect on why they joined the club and how they think the organization can best be of service to the community going forward. So sit back, enjoy your lunch if you've got it in front of you, and as we say in my business, roll tape.
Hi, I'm Greg Hahn. I was a Idaho debates moderator back in 2012 and a panelist a bunch of times before that. I, of course, first came across Elinor with work with the League of Women Voters, and she just kind of was this quiet, steady presence in getting these pretty hard to pull together events pulled together, right? I mean, not everybody wants to do that. Especially in the last few years, but that's always been the case, right? And Elinor, who kind of had this, sort of a surprisingly a firm approach. If you'd have a sitting senator or a governor who wanted to kind of bend the rules into their favor, and you could kind of rely on her to try to keep everything fair and on the up and up. And whether she was doing the kind of the negotiations that go on before a debate or running the time during a debate, right? She was nobody to be trifled with. And still, I just did one at the City Club maybe last election cycle with her, and same, she doesn't hesitate to show anybody that their time is up. She's reminded me a lot of someone kind of like in a town where I grew up, right? I grew up in a small town in the Midwest, and you would have these folks who just kept the place going, right? And she was like that. She would show up to meetings, and she would pull along a little box full of, meeting stuff. And that included the papers and her, the documents she needed, but it was also, hamburger soup or something that would, let us have lunch together while we were trying to figure out how to persuade, Senator so-and-so to actually do this debate. So, that was a very, it's a small town approach. And I think Idaho in a lot of ways is her small town. She just wanted to kind of do what she could and keeps doing what she can to make it a better place. So I'm really excited that the City Club has been able to do this for Elinor, because I think these folks who work quietly in the background, not putting themselves out for, votes and acclaim and, all the stuff that, that we think of with political life, but just do it because they care about the place and the people. They don't get enough attention, and Elinor hasn't gotten enough attention for all the amazing work she's done. So thank you, Elinor. I've learned a lot from your approach and your ideas and kind of your steadfast dedication to the state. So I appreciate it.
The League of Women Voters, or as some lawmakers were wont to call it, the League of Women Vipers. I could never understand their consternation because I was pretty sure there was only one person in the league, and that she was anything but a viper. Besides, she made the best beef stew a starving reporter could want. Only much later did I realize that there were other members involved in the league. Occasionally, Elinor would invite them to be the timekeeper for our candidates' debates, but we would implore Elinor to come back to tell those governors and U.S. senators and U.S. congressmen how it was going to be, whether they liked it or not. Green, you talked. Yellow, start wrapping it up. Red, time is up. Now, she never said it, but one got the impression if one of the debaters kept talking after they got the red light, she'd stand up and yell something inappropriate and viper-like. We call her Elinor Chehey for the longest time. She never corrected us. We would have pronounced it correctly because, as I mentioned, she made delightful beef stew. We conducted our debates meetings to make sure that Elinor could be there, and now you know why. But I was surprised the other day when she told me that the stew met the dietary desires of Betsy and Melissa. No beef or dairy, and that it was gluten-free. I still can't believe that. No beef? How is that even possible? Anyway, she always kept us on the straight and narrow. She called herself the mother hen, her words, who gets us together early in the election cycle to review criteria for candidates to participate in our debates. Sometimes the rest of us weren't really sure a debate was worth the effort, but she and later her colleague Kendall Shaber made a good point. The public deserved the right to know what each candidate thought about the important issues of the day, even if that sometimes meant readings from the Bible or strange musings from a motorcycle dude named Harley. Elinor, I'm glad the City Club is honoring you. It's obvious today that you're the gluten that holds institutions together, even if you don't put it in the damn stew. The one who makes things work by your quiet, deliberate manner behind the scenes. Now, I don't know how many other meetings you bring stew to, but it says a lot about you. It's a small gesture, but it convinces everyone in the room that you care about them as individuals. And that's how things get done, it seems to me. Congratulations on the honor. Well deserved.
I'm Susan Ripley, President of the League of Women Voters of Idaho. Elinor Chehey has been a member of the League of Women Voters for 50 years. During that time, she has been a powerhouse working for democracy. She has done so much for Idaho and its residents. I've had the privilege of working with Elinor for several years, and I know she is very deserving of this award. Elinor serves as a mentor for League members. With her history, she has much knowledge to share, but the best times are when we sit around and she tells stories about her experiences. Congratulations, Elinor. No one deserves this award more than you.
Congratulations, Elinor, for your wonderful honor from the City Club of Boise. I can't think of anybody more deserving. You know, for 35 years, Elinor and I have worked together as she has helped us with our Idaho Debates project. In her work with the League of Women Voters, she was always there, always counted on to help us convince the various candidates to participate, to make sure that we all kept everything in order, and to make some of those hard decisions when some candidates didn't qualify to be part of our debates. Elinor was always there, a steadfast voice and a wonderful person to work with. Congratulations, Elinor, on this wonderful honor. Nobody's more deserving of it. And thank you for all you've done for Idaho Public Television and the community. You really are one of a kind. Thanks so much.
I'm Jean McNeil. I used to produce Idaho reports and the Idaho debates back in the 80s. I will never forget Elinor's calm, tact, and determination. There were times when I was sure that the debates were going to go up in smoke, but she pulled them out every time. I am grateful to Elinor for that, and also for her commitment to civil discourse in Idaho, which is badly needed right now. Thank you, Elinor, and best wishes.
Hello, I'm Mark Johnson. I'm particularly happy to have an opportunity to join so many others in offering a few words of encouragement and support for the City Club's recognition of Elinor. Richly deserved recognition for a real lifetime of civic engagement. And what a fitting remembrance of Dottie Stimpson to provide this award to Elinor at this time. I think I can say that I was in on the ground floor, or maybe it was the sub-basement back in those days, of the partnership between Idaho Public Television, the Press Club, and of course Elinor and the League of Women Voters in launching what has now become institutionalized as the Idaho Debates. She was very much a driving force in that effort back in the late 1970s. I particularly remember her involvement in some really historic debates in 1980 between then Senator Frank Church and then Congressman Steve Sims in that contentious 1980 United States Senate race. I had the opportunity to moderate those debates, but Eleanor was pulling the strings from the shadows. There's no question about that. I remember her and will always remember her as, number one, a tireless advocate for civic engagement, always good-natured, always showing up with a smile on her face and 1,000 ideas in her handbag. The best of the, what I would call the small d democracy that is so vital to sustaining the American experience. And she's done a great, great job and a great service to Idaho for so many years. The one thing I will say about Eleanor is that she is the epitome of the passionate advocate of civic engagement, which is what the Dottie Stimpsons of the world are all about. She really, truly believed that it was absolutely essential to democracy that political candidates who were seeking your vote had to stand up in public next to their opponents and make the case for their candidacy. And she believed that in this era of too much talk about fake news and conspiracy theories, that the citizens really needed to be engaged, and she was going to provide the platforms and the opportunities for that engagement. So richly deserved recognition for a truly great Idahoan and somebody who's made a consistent contribution to the civic life of the state for decades. So congratulations, Eleanor.
Eleanor and I started working on the debates in the 1990s and were part of a team well into the 2000s. The one thing I remember about Eleanor is her calm supportiveness, because if you think debates are staid, political wonkiness, you have no idea what goes on behind the camera. Over the years, we were physically attacked for trying to get a candidate in the door. We had to hold firm on the no props rule, and even had one candidate walk out of a live debate just because she felt the media were not giving her enough attention. When one unnamed candidate refused to debate unless no notes were allowed, we had to promise to physically body check his opponent to the ground and then wrestle any papers out of his hands before the debate would happen. And through all the craziness, Eleanor supported me and faced the threats and the scowls right at my side. She is amazing in who and what she knows, and her dedication to making sure the public has the information it needs to make good decisions. And personally, she is a joy, and I couldn't be more thrilled than to add my voice to the chorus of congratulations for this well-deserved honor. So Eleanor, thank you, and way to go.
Hi, Eleanor. Peter Morrill here, taking a little trip down memory lane to the old Idaho Public Television studios here on the Boise State University campus. I thought it'd be appropriate to come here because this is where we originally met in the early 1980s. And if my memory serves me correct, and remember, sometimes memories are better than the truth, we met during the Frank Church Steve Sims debate here at BSU that public television televised statewide. Well, I just wanted to take a moment and congratulate you on this great honor for receiving the Stimpson 2020 Distinguished Service Award. So all the best to you, and I wish you the very, very best.
Eleanor, it's Jim Peck from Lansing, Michigan, with my gigantic quarantine hair from one state capital to another, just to say thank you for all the years we worked together, for all the times you lent such a supporting hand and provided such a calming force in some interesting and challenging times way out there in Idaho. During everything from the Idaho debates to Idaho reports, you always helped connect the dots of those important things like equality, inclusion, fairness, and objectivity, things that form the points on the curve of our democracy. For all that and so much more, I say thank you, and for whatever's next, I wish you the absolute very, very best.
It's been such a pleasure working with Eleanor over the years. I've really come to value her institutional knowledge when it's time to get ready for the Idaho debates. I appreciate what she brings to the table, not just in terms of that institutional knowledge, but also she brings snacks to every meeting. And if you've ever been in a long meeting with grumpy, hungry journalists and politicos, you know how valuable those snacks are. So cheers to Elinor. I appreciate her so much.
I've had the pleasure of working with Elinor for many years. Back in 2004, when we first formed IDOG, Idahoans for Openness in Government, Elinor came on our board as the League of Women Voters representative. And she was wonderful and still is a whirlwind of activity when we needed it, but a quiet one and such an incredibly helpful one. We had to figure out how to hold seminars in small towns far and wide all over the state with the Attorney General and the Idaho Press Club and a whole lot of others with the cities and the counties and so on to educate local government officials and members of the press and just citizens about how to comply with the open meeting law and the public records law. And that effort has been fabulously successful. We have done dozens and dozens of those sessions around the state since 2004. And a huge part of the credit goes to Elinor. When we first were trying to figure out how do we find all the local government officials within reach of this remote spot we're going to go to, Elinor mobilized her resources through the League of Women Voters. She found every single taxing district and its contact information and helped us get the word out. She mobilized her League of Women Voters folks in the area, and she has been such a wonderful partner in that effort. I appreciate her so much. And always she's been just a quiet and reliable force. She is never not there for us, and I appreciate that so much. That is not the only context in which I have worked with Elinor. Obviously, I've worked with her on the Idaho debates for many years as well, and it's so comforting to know that Elinor and her crew are the timekeepers, and there's no fear or favor in their timekeeping. Any candidate from any party is let know when they are at a time, when their time is expiring, and she does not hesitate to let them know that. I've also seen Elinor testify to the legislature on many occasions, and she has always been scrupulously careful to remain nonpartisan when she presents her views. And she's made it clear that she's concerned about that. She has deep feelings about doing the right thing in our state and about our government functioning properly and serving the people. And she does it in a fair and nonpartisan way, and it's so impressive. Elinor, thank you so much for all you have done over the years and for all you continue to do. And I look forward to continuing to work with you.
Wow, Elinor, what you think? That was an amazing video, don't you think? Congratulations on all of those tributes.
Oh my!
How do you feel watching that video?
I'm amazed and humbled, and it's nice to be appreciated.
It sure is. It sure is. Well, I join my voice as well to that, and I'm looking forward to talking with you a little bit now about the backstory, right? And how you got to that point of doing so much volunteering and help in our state for civic engagement. Let's talk now about how you got involved in the League. It was in Pocatello in the 70s. What made you?
We moved to my husband and I, after we got married, we moved to Coeur d'Alene, and then after a few years, we moved to Pocatello, and he went to graduate school at ISU. And there was a newspaper or a radio story about the League of Women Voters meeting and what they were going to talk about. And it sounded interesting, so I went and found them interesting, friendly women, and so I joined and became active in the League. I worked mostly I worked in voter service activities, candidate forums and the like, but we also have good discussions about school finance and other things that were and planning and zoning and other things that were of interest to me. So I just found them to be kindred souls.
And Eleanor, why was working in voter services and voter education so attractive to you? What drew you to that particular mission?
Well, one of the primary purposes of the League of Women Voters is to encourage informed and active participation of citizens in government. And I just feel it's real important for people to know who they're voting for, know something about who they're voting for beyond just what they put in their advertisements and, telling us what they want to tell us.
How did the televised debates come about? Because I know that you were doing candidate forums already for the League, but it stepped it up a notch to take it to television. Talk about the early iteration of that.
Well, the first debates that I got involved with Idaho Public Television was in 1974, when public television was fairly new in Idaho, and I worked with Jack Schlafly, who was the station manager at the time. And apparently he didn't think to talk to the program manager about how much time the debates would take. So he had me invite the candidates to come and each do either half-hour or hour debates. I've forgotten now exactly how long we told them it was going to be. But when the candidates got here to have their debates videotaped, the station manager said, no, these are going to be 15-minute or half-hour debates. Anyway, they were about half the time that I had told them in the letter that it was going to be. So, and one of the candidates was Senator Stoichev, who had driven down from Sandpoint in his campaign to be the superintendent of public instruction, and he was most unhappy.
I'll bet yeah.
And so it was an interesting introduction to televised debates.
Well, as Joan mentioned, there have been some interesting times over the years. Anytime you do live television, but particularly when it's ramped up for politics. Do you have any fun stories to share about that?
I remember we had one of the times when Governor Andrus was running, it was about his third time to be running, and he figured, figured he's the governor, he's in charge, and he gets to tell us how it's going to be. And we said, when we had to tell him how it was going to be, and yeah, so that was one of the more interesting debates that we dealt with.
I assume he took the medicine.
He did. Then he was gracious about it too. So
yeah, I'm sure. It's interesting, when you and I talked before this recorded interview, you mentioned that originally you thought you might be a home ec teacher, and then you found that working with a whole classroom of children probably wasn't your thing. But in a lot of ways, working with a whole bunch of politicians, working with a whole bunch of reporters, it kind of is like having your own group of kids in a way. What's your secret for maintaining your composure? Because as many people said in the video, and I've experienced, you are calm and you just work through things. What's your secret?
I'm not sure. I guess I just feel like the mission is more important than my ego. I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's that stew people talked about that you brought, and that may help calm things down as well. Is that part of the secret, bringing food?
Yes. Yes, they see that the stew helps a lot, I think.
Yeah. Let's talk about something that I know is also very near and dear to your heart, and that is the Citizens Reapportionment Commission. And, you know, it's kind of a wonky thing. People may not be so much aware of. The Stimpson Award did go to the Citizens Commission a number of years ago. This is something you're particularly proud of, and talk a little bit about why that was needed and why the League worked so hard on that issue.
Well, the redistricting has been a struggle in Idaho ever since it started, because up until the 1960s, Idaho's legislature was made up of one senator per county. Each county had its own legislators, and the 1960s, about 1965 Supreme Court decision that required one man, one vote gave Ada County more legislative districts and required the more rural counties to be combined into districts. It's always been a struggle, always was a struggle. People say there are two things you don't want to watch. One is sausage being made, and the other is legislation being made. And we said when the legislature is redrawing the district, it's like making sausage with live piggies. And
you really don't want to watch it happen at that point.
Right. And as Ada County and Canyon County grow in population, it just more and more of the rural districts get combined, and those legislators get cut out. And it was ugly in 1982 after Ada County grew enough to have its own legislative district because of the Hewlett-Packard coming to town and bringing lots of jobs. Western Ada County used to be divided, with part of it being attached to Owyhee County and part of it being attached to Gem County and some other counties north of us. And in 1982, Western Ada County would get its own district, and some of the legislators who'd get cut out didn't like that, and there was a fist fight on the noon hour.
A fist fight on the noon hour. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Mr. Brassey was Mr. Brassey was in
Ada County and one from I think it was actually the Elmore County senator. Anyway, so there were efforts to get a citizens commission created, and we did a study, and we tried to do an initiative, and we got lots of good publicity about the initiative, but not enough signatures. This was in 1989 and 90, and when the legislature had to redistrict itself again in 1992, they said, you know, that Citizens Commission wasn't such a bad idea. So they then passed a constitutional amendment to create the Citizens Commission. And I was real pleased to see that happen.
And the idea is that really lawmakers aren't the best people to redistrict themselves, that it's better to take it to a more neutral citizens group.
Right.
And how do you think that's worked?
I think it has worked well. There was one commission that was put together that had some people who couldn't compromise, and that attempt failed in with the 2010 redistricting, but then a second committee was put together, and they got the job done. Mm-hmm. And so I'm hoping that the people who pick the commissioners this time will take that into consideration and pick people who can work across the aisle and get it done.
Elinor, you're involved in so many things. What is it inside of you that makes you want to help so many people and different causes?
I don't know. Our son says, "Mom is relentlessly helpful," and he says with a certain amount of chagrin, but that's okay.
What do you get out of it? What feeling do you get from?
I don't know. I guess I just feel I feel good about being helpful and making things work and making things fairer for everybody.
How are you feeling about receiving this award?
I'm almost overwhelmed. It is all the nice comments that people made. I'm just pleased and humbled.
Well, I add my congratulations as well, Elinor. Thanks for everything you've done for the state, for the cause of not only civic engagement, but civil engagement. And wonderful, wonderful congratulations to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we're back live, and hopefully we'll be joined by our honoree in a moment here so that we can do something special for her. We're waiting for Elinor right now, and there is the woman of the hour, Elinor Chehey. Elinor, it's great to see you, and again, my congratulations. And we are going to perform some sleight of hand here, and City Club President Karen Sonder is going to present you with the award.
So, Elinor, it is my pleasure to present this year's Stimpson Award for Civic Engagement to you. Congratulations. And I know that even though you cannot see all of them, our attendees today are applauding. And so with that, there's the award. Congratulations.
It's magic. Congratulations, Elinor, and hope you have a place on that beautiful mantle for that award. And would you like to take this opportunity to say a few words?
There, let's see, I need to unmute.
You're good, Elinor.
You're good, we can see you. You can put down the weapon. Elinor called it that. Elinor, would you like to say a few words to the group that's listening?
She's muted.
Okay, there you go.
Well, I have to say that, you know, there were several people who were so pleased with the pots of stew that came to meetings. And I have to say that started after we did a lunch hour meeting downtown at one of the restaurants. And Bruce very generously said, well, I'll charge this on the station's credit card. And he found out that the state rules didn't make this wasn't considered enough of a meeting for the state to want to pay for it. So I thought, well, gee, for what it would cost, for less than what it would cost me for my share of a downtown lunch meeting, I could make a pot of stew and feed everybody. And we generally meet at the noon hour, especially during the session. Well, and the rest of the year too, because that's when you working folk can get together. So that was the start of the stew, of the pots of stew coming to the meetings. So I was glad to be able to do that.
Well, a full stomach made from some very good debate. So thank you again, Elinor, and congratulations to you.
Thank you, Elinor.
And now we're going to move to the next part of our program, and we're going to mark the club's 25th anniversary with a special discussion between me and 3 founding board members, Diane Ronayne, Rod Grammer, and Roy Aguirre, along with our current president, Karen Sonder. So let's get everybody on board here. It's kind of like Wizard of Oz. Here they come. All right. Wonderful. Wonderful to see you. I served with you on that founding board. It's great to see your faces again. Let's open first. If anyone wants to talk about our honoree, Elinor, do you have memories of doing things with her?
I do. I met Elinor when we were both in League of Women Voters in 1976, 74, 75. We were working on a state land use plan at that time. Elinor was at the State House. She was on the state board, as I recall, and we've known each other ever since. She's an incredible woman. And just this last election, I asked her if she would time the ACHD candidate forum, which we put on, and by gosh, she stepped right up and did it, and it was perfect. So she has not lost any of her skill over the years. Congratulations, Elinor.
March, I first met Elinor in 1978 when I was president of the Idaho Press Club, and we sponsored what became known as the Idaho debates. And I've known Elinor around the State House all the years I covered the legislature for the Statesman. But we still stay in touch because every February I get this delightful invitation to come and speak to the Methodist women about what's going on in the legislature, especially around education. So at least once a year, I get to see Elinor and spend time with her and her wonderful group of women in the Methodist Church. So Elinor, congratulations. Nobody deserves this more than you do, so thank you.
All right, wonderful. Well, let's talk about your first involvement with the City Club of Boise. Roy, do you want to weigh in on that?
Sure. I had the great occasion to work with Ed Stimpson as outside counsel to the Morrison-Knudsen Company, where Ed was Senior Vice President for Governmental Affairs. And through Ed, I've had the great opportunity to meet Dottie, who was one of the number of superlatives I could use is endless in terms of describing Dottie. But the first interaction I had with her was she essentially told me that I was going to be a founding member of the board of directors, in that she, being a solid long-term Democrat, needed a Republican that she could get along with, actually. So we had an opportunity to talk a little bit about that, and I was flattered and truly honored to be a founding member of the City Club. It was something very special to me and always will be.
And why is that, Roy? What do you find special about that?
Well, I first became familiar with the City Club when I was with Peter Johnson of the Bonneville Power Administration, and the City Club of Portland was just a spectacular institution in that particular community. So when I learned from Dottie that she wanted to bring a City Club to Boise, I thought, gosh, that's really quite exceptional. That means that Boise's kind of come of age, if you will. And so to be able to be a part of that founding group, like all of us that are on here, was, I thought, something quite unique. We were bringing something, as I say, very special to Boise, and we were bringing something that has obviously a long life. It's been 25 years. City Club has become a major institution in our community, and I think is viewed uniformly across partisan lines and other sorts of lines as a preeminent institution for civil discourse and bringing before the community very important topics. So again, I was very flattered and very honored.
Yes, and I remember she also called me and said, "You are going to do this." And at the time, I guess,
no one loved.
Yeah, I guess at the time I was considered her younger generation representative, and as you can see, I either wasn't that young or it's been a long time. So Diane, why don't you talk about how you became associated with the City Club and why?
Well, when I learned that the City Club was in existence, I wanted to join because I wanted to foster civil discourse, and that's what it was all about. I was serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission at the time, and there was nothing civil about the discourse that was going on there, or any of the other, the neighborhoods were at each other's throats, and it was just ugly. And I thought, we need a place where we can have people sit down in a place that's, it's not adversarial. It's a place where we can get to know each other as people over a cup of coffee or lunch, and find out we have things in common and learn together. And so what could be wrong with that? And so when I was invited to join the board, I think I was kind of a last minute choice, but I was involved with the neighborhood associations at that time. And I think that's why they asked me to come on.
Yes, and you probably remember how in those days, a lot of things were cut out by hand, and all the membership was done on pieces of paper, and it's quite different than it is now. It really was a full-on volunteer experience.
Oh yeah.
Rod Grammer, why don't you talk a little bit about how you became involved as well, and picking up on what Roy said about Ed. Really, we don't want to forget as well that Dottie and Ed were a team. This award is named after both of them, and they were both very, very involved in the community together, and I believe you knew both of them as well.
I did. I first met Dottie and Ed in the early 1980s when I was working on the Frank Church biography. And Bethany Church introduced me to Dottie and Ed. And back in those days, I made frequent trips to Washington, D.C. to do research for the book, interview people. And it was on one trip that my wife Julie and I always did these trips together. And Ed and Dottie invited us over for dinner and to spend the evening with them. And they were downtown Washington. They had, I think, a condo or something, but they had this beautiful deck where we had dinner out on that deck, and we could see the monuments all lit up. It was just one of those magical nights. And you know how engaging Dottie and Ed were anyway. And, Dottie had a little bit of this, she had a lot of what Bethine had. I think they really fed off of each other. And, she had that sort of take you under her wings, motherly, whatever it was. And Dottie and Ed were so gracious about kind of showing us around DC, introducing us to people. It was just wonderful. And then she moved to Boise. I forget when, but I think it was the early 90s. And we struck up, continued our friendship and relationship. And I remember that there was a restaurant down on Jefferson Street. It used to be a grocery store when I grew up in Boise. Then it turned into a pretty nice restaurant in the mid-90s. I forget the name. But Dottie asked me to go to lunch there. And she said, I want to start this thing called the City Club. And Dottie had been very familiar with Seattle. That's how she got the idea. And she wanted to bring this to Boise. And she asked me if I would be on the board, and I was the executive news director at KTVB at the time. And I said, well, I'd love to be on the board, but I got to make sure it's nonpartisan. I got to make sure that there are Republicans involved, because I knew Dottie was a Democrat. So I said, there's got to be Republicans involved for me to be on the board. And she went out and recruited Republicans, obviously recruited Roy. And so that's how I got on the board. Was she asked me, and I was thrilled that she did. And like Roy, it's been an honor to be on the founding board.
Yeah, and we shouldn't forget that in 1995, when this was founded, I mean, we're in contentious times then as well, 94. So part of the reason was the landscape that she was watching then, and wanting to have some solace and a place where people could talk amongst each other. Karen, could you talk a little bit about your involvement in City Club, how you became involved, and why you wanted to lead the organization as well?
Thanks, Marcia. So I was invited to go to one of the luncheons by Joan Carley. When I started as the executive director for the Downtown Boise Association, she reached out to me and said, hey, you need to go. you need to go and see what's going on. So nobody said no to Joan. And so I went with her to one of the luncheons, and I was just highly impressed. I loved the interaction. I loved meeting people that I hadn't crossed paths with in my day-to-day work. And I just loved the content that was being delivered. And so I quickly became a member. And so that was 2004. I've been a member since, and probably attended a good majority of the programming. And about 4 or 5 years ago, had the opportunity to join the board, and I jumped at it. And so it's just an absolute honor to continue this fabulous tradition of leadership. I stand on all of your shoulders, and I'm just joyful that I can lead this organization that really does bring people together. And in the spirit of Dottie and Ed, you know, good things happen when people start talking, and I really believe in that.
That motto has stuck with the club for its 25 years, although I know that Dottie said over and over again that if she could add listening to that, nothing happens till people start talking and listening.
Right.
She always, until the day she passed, she was hoping that would be added to the motto, because she felt like talking wasn't just enough. Let's start wrapping up. I'd like to know from all of you, as City Club moves forward, where do you see it could be of most use in the community? What kind of changes or initiatives would you recommend going down the pike? Roy?
Well, there's any number of initiatives I think the City Club could undertake, but I think one that would be fairly important is to really work hard at broadening its membership to include those folks that are new to our community. Obviously, we're the fastest growing city in the country, the fastest growing state. I think in order to continue this unique status that the City Club has would take an additional effort, not to suggest there isn't an effort now, but an additional effort to reach out to those newcomers to the community and make sure that they're included. And as it looks to programming, speak to those issues that are very important in terms of the growth that we're experiencing here in Idaho and in the metropolitan area.
Definitely. Diane?
I agree with Roy. I think we do need to reach out to a broader base. And part of the issue is money, of course. It costs money for the lunches, money for membership. But I know Marilyn Schuler, when she was a member, a board member, and a good friend of all of us, provided scholarships for people so that they could join our meals. And I assume that's still happening, and I'd like to see more of that. Also reaching out to the international community that is now here and it's growing. I remember helping put on a forum with Yasmin Hamidi, who was an Afghani woman who had come to Boise, a refugee, and she was a speaker. And I don't think anybody in that room had heard someone like her speaking before, who had lost their country and was, you know, in a whole new place and having a whole new life. And how do you go about it? So I think we need to learn. We can learn. We do learn from people from all over the world who are here now, and we should take advantage of that and reach out to those folks and all the other folks that you're talking about too.
Thank you. Rod?
Yeah, I think there are two things that I could see. When I moved to Portland to be the news director at KGW, I never joined the Portland City Club because I was just too busy at the station, but I moderated debates there for them and got to know them pretty well. And one of the things I really liked about that club is that they were, as Roy said, they were so well respected in Oregon, not just in Portland, but throughout the state. And one of the things they did was they regularly did white papers on some of the most crucial issues facing Oregon: transportation, land use, education. And those papers got a lot of attention. Those papers got great press coverage. And I know that that costs money and it takes sweat equity to do that kind of research. But maybe the club could start out collaborating with people who are also doing those things, like the McClure Center, the Andrus Center, the Frank Church Center, and then eventually create the capacity to do its own reports. The other thing I would see is that you see this in other states, and I'll compare this to Portland and Multnomah County and Washington County. That's really, in Oregon, the political heft of that state are really made up of those two counties. And we have something very similar where we have Ada County and Canyon County. Canyon County is going to become more and more important to our state, both economically and politically. And I'd love to see the City Club perhaps organize a club over there, either in Nampa or Caldwell or both, where we start getting Canyon County engagement as well. Because as that county becomes more important economically and politically, this kind of engagement is going to be extremely important for the future of our state. So I think those are two things I'd love to see the club undertake.
Yeah, it's been really fun to see the pollination of city clubs now in the Twin Falls, the Magic Valley area, and over in Idaho Falls. Really, really fun to see. Karen, let's cycle around to you, and maybe you could discuss how you see the club maturing in its next couple decades and any current initiatives that you have.
Well, first of all, I'm going to listen to all of these suggested opportunities, and thank you all for suggesting those. So one of the things that we did take on this year is a series on racism, and we've had a few sessions. And you know, when you talk about bringing current topics to the forefront, we've had some amazing panel members, panelists who have shared their experiences, and we're going to continue that conversation because I think it's very much needed. We're pretty excited about, you know, the silver lining with the pandemic is that we've been able to reach out further than our Ada County border, and that certainly has provided the opportunity to get speakers from all over, and also be able to provide a lot of these forums for free. So speaking to Diane's concern, I think that's an opportunity there. So I would say that's our number one initiative, that is speaking to diversity and getting out the word on that. You know, and then, you know, coming up soon is, well, first of all, I just want to shout out a huge thank you to Marsha Franklin for pulling this together. This is huge. What an honor to work with all of you. And Marsha, you know, we're so grateful for you for putting the videos together and reaching out and getting Elinor her award and this panel of speakers. I'm so appreciative. So thank you first of all for that.
My pleasure.
And then, you know, I would just like to say, you know, we've got the annual Pundits Forum. You know, when we bring people together, it's going to look a little different. We are still virtual, which again has given us an opportunity to do something different. So I hope you'll all join us on January 21st, again on Zoom for that, and we'll definitely won't disappoint.
Thank you. That's exciting. I love that forum. And of course, just because these are at no charge doesn't mean the City Club, of course, doesn't need to maintain its membership. It still has, I'm sitting in its office right now, so it still needs to keep the lights on, so to speak. So I would encourage everyone to still be a member. And if you have missed any of those super events, they are on the City Club's YouTube channel, which this will be as well. I know that there are some former presidents and other founding board members out in the audience, so a shout out to you as well. And Karen, any final words before we move on?
I just want to say thank you to everybody, and I appreciate your support of City Club of Boise, and also you know, being an ambassador, because this is a really important organization to keep that civil discourse and listening going.
Yes, now needed more than ever. So thanks to all the panelists today, Diane Ronayne, Rory Guerin, Rod Grammer, and thanks to all of you out there who are listening today. And we hope you'll join future events. Bye-bye.
Thank you.